This is live. Okay. Welcome to the Marvel Alliance podcast, where we cover anything and everything to do with the Marvel Universe. From the comics, TV, and movies, we go from the Mojoverse to Earth 616 to Madripoor to bring the Marvel Universe right to you. I am the Uncanny Chris.
And I'm your friendly neighborhood Brent.
Alliance Assemble. All right. So what are we at? Volume 44. So close to that 50. I can just feel it.
Yeah, just like a month and a half away. We're almost there.
Yeah, you can do math quicker than me. I would have said, it's sometime. A month, who knows?
Well, that's about the extent of my math knowledge. So. I can count to 6.
How is your week going into short 2 days?
I can't really complain. It's good things. Work is going good. I can't really complain. What about you?
Doing good. We have officially gone back to a quote unquote, we call it Plan A. Any and all the students can come back. We are a school of 1,600 plus, and about 650 are back full time with us. So
all right, not bad.
All at the same time. We've gone every other day, so it was quite a sight to see more students in the hallway than we've been for the past year. So we'll make that roll as we can.
Yeah, our district recently took away our hybrid option. So you can be virtual or you can be full-time in person. That's
Same.
It. So that started 2 weeks ago. I don't know. I don't have to deal with the kids directly very often. So sometime recently.
You deal with the different clients.
Yeah, I deal with the teachers.
Very good. All right. So let's get these lovely network plugs out of the way. So we are part of the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network with 9 shows coming at you 7 days a week, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. We've got my show, World's Finest True Believer, starting off the week on Monday. We did a new episode this week with Travis Hines, who is back with us in the chat, but he joined me for continuing our exploration of the Injustice series with year 3. So a lot of fun doing that. I'm enjoying reading that for the first time, but I did jump ahead. I had the opportunity to read Injustice Year 0 that just is now fully on DC Universe and is actually very good and doesn't spoil anything, because I don't know what years 4 and 5 are bringing. So because Travis was giving me, why'd you read it that way? Is because I don't know what's coming ahead, so it didn't spoil anything I already didn't know.
Okay, I mean, whatever works for you. I'm trying to think if I've read, is year 0 the year that's like it's year 1 from Harley Quinn's point of view or something like that?
No, this was a new one that came out last year. Tom Taylor came back, and this was where the JSA are involved. And because people were wondering where the JSA have been throughout the entire Injustice series. So this kind of sets the stage for what happened to them.
I don't think I read this. I don't think I've read that year. So sorry, Travis. I know you're yelling at me right now, but I don't think I've read year 0. But 1 through 5, I definitely read.
Mm-hmm. So definitely with that. And then we've got DC Alliance. Then we've got Marvel Alliance, this show. So welcome. Then we've got Star Wars Alliance, Ranger Alliance, Slice of Film, Superhero Discussions, Weird Science Comic Book Roundup. So we've got those Weird Science, DC and Marvel Roundup. So we got both things coming at you. We've got a Patreon. We've got a tip jar for $1. So you're supporting us. We appreciate it. And then if you jump to the $5 tier, we got ad-free episodes. We've got exclusive episodes. We've got early access to episodes. So we hope you're enjoying all that. We definitely appreciate that. But if you can't support us through Patreon, we understand. But if you've got 30 to 90 seconds, if you can rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, or whichever podcatcher of choice may be, we greatly appreciate it. I think that, and Nathan in the chat, Brent looks snazzy. He definitely looks snazzier than I do.
I don't do snazzy. No.
Vetoed. So the last plug is for my buddy at Organic Price Comics, JP. So I don't have a book to show off this week at this point, but want to continue to plug a store. It's gaining more and more traction. So if you are looking for anything and everything to do with collected editions, pre-orders from Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, Image, everything, he's got it all going on for great discounts, amazing packaging, quick shipping. As soon as he gets his books in, 24 to 48 hours later, you're getting that notice. It's in the mail and very quick shipping. So if you would like to visit his store, again, it is organicpricecomics.com right there on the screen. And if you use the code MarvelGUA, you get at checkout, you get $2 off every single order. So definitely check that out. And he does good work over there. So we appreciate his support. Let's see what we got going on. A little bit Luthery. Oh, all right.
Yeah, that's from my buzzed hair, and it definitely looks bald, but that's because I cut it so short, so I don't have to jack with it for a while.
Very good. Hey, everything serves a purpose, right?
Yeah, it's out of laziness. Let's be clear here.
Excellent. So, again, honesty is always the best policy, right?
Well, I'm lazy, so I'm honest.
Oh, good. Let us get to the beginning of the show, as we've done for the last few weeks. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, episode 4. Oh boy, this had some moments.
It's titled "The Whole World Is Watching," and that's how it feels. Because man, everybody is talking about this episode on pretty much every social network that I follow. It has been insane.
I mean, from the new memes to just people saying, "What the heck just happened?"
I thought the 1 hour Zemo cut of him dancing was gonna dominate the conversation this weekend, but nope, certainly not.
No, I mean, we got that. We got that hour Zemo cut of just seeing Zemo dance for an hour, which is quite enjoyable.
All right, be honest. Have you watched it? Because I haven't.
I watched it, but it's basically
it's a loop.
It's a loop. Yeah, it's a loop. So, I mean, that dance sequence that's catchy to a point.
I did not play it for an hour. Let's put it that way.
Neither did I. But yeah. So, we could start at the beginning because there's a lot to decompress with this episode.
I think you have to start with the beginning though. With Io, with Bucky, and that phenomenal performance that Sebastian Stan turned in there when Io was, trying the trigger words, trying the code words to turn him into Winter Soldier. And just, I think that scene is the finest piece of acting he has delivered across the entire MCU.
I agree, just because, the shows have given us a window into things we've wondered about, things how we got there. We all headcanoned it away, when we saw him pop up in the end credits scene where, they call him the White Wolf. Where's the war? We said, okay, he's looking quote unquote better. He looks deprogrammed, but how did that happen? How did that all kind of transpire? So we get this, another window in, but just seeing even the music, you hear the Winter Soldier music fighting, and then you get another more somber and fighting against the Winter Soldier music, and just the tears as it's probably a mix of pain, relief, shock, all this stuff. Like Io says, you're free.
Yeah, it's like this weight has been lifted from him, and you see the moment it was lifted. And Io, I love the confidence she has when she's just like, I'm not going to let you hurt anybody. And you know what? I believe she's fully capable of backing that up if she wants. And if I questioned it before, I certainly don't question it anymore.
Oh yeah. When she said that, I was like, I believe you. It's not one that we doubt, but it's just, I love these moments that we do get that we've all wondered about, but just I truly believe Sebastian Stan didn't phone it in at all at that one. I truly believe that is what Bucky would be going through at that moment. And just the juxtaposition with flashing forward to him, having the conversation with Io on the street when saying what, basically he knew they were going to be coming. He knew, once they released Zemo, this would something that they would be, hey, we're going to take him. Now, I know some people debate online, oh, they're going to take him and kill him. I was like, I think if we've learned anything from Black Panther and what we've seen of it, I don't think they're necessarily a population that's going to, at least in my opinion, just resort to, capital punishment.
I think the evidence is there that while at one time they would have done that under T'Challa's reign, and we don't know the specifics right now with where T'Challa is in this timeline because we just don't know how they're going to handle Chadwick Boseman's passing. But if we think back in Black Panther, T'Challa did not want to kill Claw. He tried to bring him in. And go back to Civil War when the death of T'Chaka, the death of his father, was at its most raw point because it just happened. He still chose to bring in Zemo and to stop him from killing himself because the living was not done with him yet. He chose to save him. I'm not convinced that they just flat out would kill Zemo. I do believe they would take him back to Wakanda. I don't see them putting him back in jail that he's just going to walk out again.
True.
But I think they would drag him back to Wakanda, and I wouldn't be disappointed at all if we saw that by the end of this series. But I'm not convinced that they would have actually just flat out killed him.
Yeah, I mean, I'll even point it back to Black Panther when, T'Chaka found out that his brother was, the one that had allowed Claw to get in and steal the vibranium. And so his purpose was to bring him in and have him stand trial. And he only killed him out of self-defense,
Right.
I don't think it was a force thing. I mean, it is his brother. So, there's something to be said about that at that point. So, but it was good. As soon as I didn't think we were going to be seeing the last of Io, and just when they do come back into play, my goodness, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but that was so good.
Yeah, she said, well, I'll give you 8 hours. And I was convinced 8 hours from now was going to be episode 5. I was like, oh, well, I guess we're not going to see them again this week. That sucks. And oh boy, was I wrong, because we got a scene that I did not know I needed, but it was
well, we'll hold that. Yeah, we'll get there. But I love all three of them, and I saw this online. I can't remember what site was putting it out there, but saying like that we've gotten 2 shows now with a trio pairing that we didn't know we needed and now have loved. With WandaVision, we had Agent Woo, we had Darcy, and
Monica.
Yes, Monica. So we got that. So now we've got Zemo, we've got Bucky, and we've got Sam. And man, that the whole conversation while they're in this like apartment, lavish townhome, whatever you want to call it, but the conversations that they have, it's a mix of a little bit of humor, but it's also talking about saying like, this idea of this theme, like the serum, what it does to a person, and how they bring about the idea that, and Lamar says it later on, is that it enhances what the person already is, and Zemo kind of says like, look, there's never been another Steve Rogers, but everyone else who has taken it has quote unquote not been good.
Yeah. What is it? Erskine said that good becomes great, bad becomes worse. I think that was the quote. And Lamar calls that out, and that's what we see. It's exactly right. Every single time the super soldier serum, really of any, either the purest stuff that went into Steve, or the beta version that went into the Red Skull, or the trials that like General Ross tried to use, every single version has held to that truth. Because, and I would argue, some might say, well, what about Bucky? And I would argue that he was mind controlled. So we didn't get to see his pure form until now. Now is the first time we're really seeing it, or maybe at the Battle of Wakanda and Infinity War, and he's still on the side of good. He's still doing the right thing. So I feel like every single time that has held true. So later in this episode, when we find out where another vial of it goes, it makes sense. It tracks.
Yeah, further Erskine's quote, because a strong man who has known power all his life will lose respect for that power, but a weak man knows the value of strength and knows compassion. My wife even pointed out, because she's like, well, isn't that why they chose Steve? And he said, that's exactly what he says after that. That is why we chose you, or he chose him.
Yeah, if you go back to that scene in the first Avenger where they're deciding to choose him, like the other Hodge, I think his name was Hodge, the other guy who was like the finalist that they were thinking about, he was like, John Walker. Like, you could tell they were cut from the same mold. And so it's like, no, it wasn't about this will give you the powers. You don't need the physical powers ahead of time. Like, it'll take care of that. You need a good man, or in case of Steve, someone who doesn't like bullies.
Yeah, and it works. But the discussion leads them to go to where, Carly and her kind of, I guess her family or other refugees who the kind of flag smashers have been kind of supporting, where they've been. And I guess apparently Zemo, wherever this place was not always a kind of refugee camp or refugee site. It was, I guess, parties and things like that. But they just walk right in and you just see everyone just tense up. They're an outsider. They don't trust outsiders. They don't want to talk to them. When Bucky and Sam try to be nice about it, they're just like, nope, we don't want you. You even see some of the flag smasher symbols on some of the, well, I don't know if it was flag smasher. I couldn't tell because there was a lot of like the kids' handprints. So, definitely a lot of symbolism with the flag smashers using the hand in the world. But who can get information out of anyone? Zemo with the kids and those Turkish delight.
I mean, that's pretty creepy, right? I mean, Zemo goes up to some kids with some candy, and it's like, such a bad look. It's like reminding you're all falling in love with Zemo, but you got to remember he is still a bad guy. Yes. He definitely just gave a bunch of candy to a bunch of kids, and that's stranger danger. Those kids did not learn that lesson.
No, it didn't. I mean, just dumping all the candy is like, oh, she was a friend of mine. Can you tell me, where the funeral is and things like that? And just here, take more candy. Just even the music is just like, I didn't think he was going to do anything bad to the kids. It's just like, it's like you said, reminding us, he's a bad guy. He can dance all, white nerdy at that point, but you just can't trust him. And the fact that he held the information until they got back to the place, he's smart. I wouldn't just, he's got his own leverage he's got to do. He can't give it all away or else he's not valuable anymore. So.
No, and thinking about it, he even was like singing Ba Ba Black Sheep. Like, even that was kind of creepy as he's walking. Like, this whole scene just creeps me out every time I watch it. But it's a good character scene. It's a good moment for Zemo, and it allows Zemo to get the upper hand because he is always thinking several steps ahead of the rest of the people he's involved with.
I like Travis in the chat saying he gave her grandmother style candy to the kids. Where are the sour keys? Also the Werthers and all that stuff. You can't forget that. But now we get to the scene that we alluded to. They're going back and forth, and who busts through the door and all his gravitas? John Walker, Captain America, and Battlestar, saying, "All right, Zemo, you're coming with me. I want, this is just not going to stand, and who else shows up then at the same time? The Dora Milaje, like as promised.
I mean, what was it? The Dora Milaje have jurisdiction wherever the Dora Milaje find themselves to be.
Yes.
There's two lines in this episode that are like up there for like contender for like some of my favorite lines of all of it. And that's one of them. And the other happens in the middle of this fight, which is far more comical. But I like when Sam just tells John, he's like, you'd rather fight Bucky than tangle with them. I'm like, you'd rather face a super soldier than mess with these women. Don't do it.
I like the idea. Like when you see him, like he introduces himself to Captain America and then he almost like he touches one of them on the shoulder or anything like that. It's like, ooh, bud, that's where your first and last mistake with this whole conversation. You're going down and you're going down hard.
Yeah, it was Io that he did that to. And I've been waiting for Sam or Bucky to punch this guy in the face. And the fact that we got to see Io do it, I did not know how badly I was going to need this. It's like, I'm so glad. This is amazing. Sure. I still want to see Bucky and Sam both get their shots in. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure we will, maybe in the first 5 minutes of the next episode for all we know. But right now, I am very satisfied of having watched the Dora Milaje just kick his ass.
I think even more satisfying is just Sam and Bucky just standing off and Bucky going, good work there, John.
Looking strong, John. Yep. That's my other line. I loved it so much. So good. It just the disdain of Bucky. Like, you can tell, like, Bucky loves it. He's got this relationship with them. In general, he appreciates them. Wakanda did a lot for him, and they're doing this to Walker. everything about this Bucky, he just is smiling so much. And he finally steps in when he thinks they're going to actually kill him. He was willing to let it go until it gets to that point.
Oh yeah, it's it was just, and then the fact that taking the shield out of play, but then was I don't think it was Io, but it was one of the other Dora Milaje. If it was an Io that did the shield flip, like
yeah, she kicked it like a skateboard, like what we saw Captain America do in the elevator scene. I don't know her name. She has been in other MCU movies. She has showed up as a Dora before, but I don't know what her character's name is.
Yeah, All in the Game has the fact that the failsafe. Yes, Io basically the failsafe in the arm, detaching the arm. I would agree. You're right, All in the Game. You can definitely tell not only just shock in Bucky's face, but just like, why would you do this? Why would you think I'm fighting you to bring a stop to this, not to kill, not to purposely hurt it. But I know in our group chat, we kind of went back and forth on this saying, did they ever trust Bucky? I don't think it's that when you're dealing with what Bucky had to go through, being deprogrammed like he did. I mean, we kind of saw in the fight in Madripoor, when Sam kind of had to calm him down and make sure he was good. Like, there's nothing to say that he might not go back. He's still a trained assassin. He's still, this, lethal weapon, as it were. But for them to build a failsafe just in case if they only knew about how to deactivate, it'll do it. But it's, it'll take Bucky out of play in a sense, but he's not out. He's probably even more, he's probably still, he's still dangerous even without that arm. But it is a stop moment for him to just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you did that.
I don't think it's a case of them not trusting him. I think it's a case of them just not being naive about it. Because, well, yes, they were able to deprogram him from the Winter Soldier programming, but nothing says that he couldn't be taken again, and nothing says that maybe wouldn't be even easier for him to be taken again, mind controlled again, more susceptible to it because he's gone through it before. I don't know. I think it's responsible of them to do that. And I mean, I've seen some speculation of like Bucky knew it was there and he was more shocked that they used it to turn. And okay, sure, like, oh, you take it off to clean it or something, I guess. But Sam flat out says, did you know he could do that? Or no, they could do that. And Bucky says no. So he did not know that this was a thing, that it was possible. And clearly it's not like she permanently disabled it. He was able to put it right back on. The whole thing was temporary. I think even Bucky would understand you have to have a failsafe. You got to have something in case I go mad again. I think he would want that.
Yeah, Travis agrees. It's a smart and responsible thing to do. And it would make the most sense for, for them to be not as, he said it's not about trusting. It's just, like you said, not naive. This is what we're dealing with. I guess that's why it's as Travis says, I guess that's why it's shocking, because it's not normally the way people do things. Well, maybe, but again, when you're dealing with who Bucky it was at the time, being the Winter Soldier, again, it's the smart thing to do. You just want to, you trust but verify.
Exactly.
It's not one of these things like he's on a leash or anything like that. It's just you get out of line. Doesn't put you down permanently. It just, evens the odds in a sense. So during that time, Zemo escapes, but let's kind of back away and talk about Carly, where she's at, the Flag Smashers. We hear the report as they're all camped out that they're gaining some support with what they're doing as a result of the bombing and the deaths at that point. But that conversation she has, and I can't remember the name of her colleague at the time, but the one that basically says, I was a fan of Captain America when I was a kid.
It's Nico.
Nico.
Yep.
And hearing that conversation that he says that, Captain America, and that, Captain America, what Steve stood for is not the Captain America this world needs right now. They need a different type of Captain America. And he says, well, they need someone like you. What we really need is someone like Sam. Sam is a mix of Steve's goodness in his heart and his hope of a better future, but is also not as naive as Steve was in the beginning. You know,
Agreed.
Steve got better in the end. Like, he definitely wasn't that naive, but he represents more of what in this case America is right now.
When Steve found out that Fury and Shield were using the Tesseract to build weapons, like, that took him down a path. And then Project Insight, even further, like, away from how naive he was in the first Avenger. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Sam doesn't have that. He doesn't have any of those illusions. He very much knows what America is like today, and especially for a black man. And he is the Captain America that we need right now. Not Bucky, certainly not John Walker. It is Sam. Granted, part of me did want that Dora to take the shield and walk off with it and be like, well, if you can't be responsible with this piece of vibranium, we're going to take it back. Part of me did want that to happen, but we need it to end up in Sam's hands.
Mm-hmm. Fanboy Clay, I know the Flag Smashers aren't technically Thanos sympathizers, but are they technically Thanos sympathizers?
I don't think so, because the Thanos sympathizers are like people who are like, oh, there's not enough resources or whatever, so he did the right thing. And I don't think it's a case of that, because they're not saying, if you really think about it, they're not even advocating kill half the people or anything like that. They just want the open borders back that apparently happened during that 5 years. That's what they want. They want to feel like they're valued, because, like, people would leave, they would go to other countries, they'd help rebuild, and then they got kicked out when the blip happened and everybody came back. That's what they want to go back to. They don't want to go back to half their people being dead.
Yeah, it's more of the effects of what Thanos did. I don't think they liked the means of how it happened, but the after effects of it ended up showing it. As even Sam has said, you know, in their conversation with Bucky, like, there was togetherness, because, again, there was, like, misery loves company. You know, they found a way to kind of unite and be there for each other where they never were before, because of the blip.
Right. Exactly.
And, you know, it's something that's, you know, we go to where they, you know, Zemo tells them exactly where they are. And then I find it interesting that they're on the street walking towards the funeral. And then up comes John and Lamar, Battlestar, just all in their uniform. It's like everyone else is nonchalant about it, but it's indicative of who John is. Like, he can't be out of uniform. It's like it goes to something noticing at this point, like looking at a lot of the MCU, if not all the MCU heroes, are trying to prove they're worthy to being a hero, while every villain believes that they're entitled to power. The universe owes it to them because they think they're special, you know. And so John's kind of walking that line.
I think that's exactly right. He is demanding the respect that Captain America deserves, while forgetting the fact that he's not the Captain America that earned that respect. He wants to just come in and get credit for it. He wants to have people look in awe at him, but he's not the guy who earned it. He's not the guy who faced down Thanos and his armies. He's not the guy who jumped on a grenade when he thought it was going to blow up, because he even said it when Bucky asked him about that. Oh, he's got this, helmet that can cover it and save him. It's not the same. And he doesn't understand that. He wants all the rewards. He doesn't want to do any of the work for it.
Yeah, and I want to give credit where credit is due. I got that idea, and I thought it was a brilliant idea from Ryan from Screen Crush, his analysis of the Easter eggs at that point. Yeah, that was like, oh my God, that kind of breaks down pretty much everything right there of what's been going on in the MCU. And people say, oh, they do the same thing over and over again. But again, it's how they get to that point, and seeing, like, not everything is, just, as black and white. Some people like to paint the MCU as totally cookie cutter. I think there's some say to that, but I think that kind of negates what they're trying to do in different movies and the genres that we're seeing. On the game saying, you guys are familiar with Nando versus movies YouTube video theories. We talked about them last week. I mentioned them last week with the weird theory about how Sharon was been a been a secret Hydra agent the whole time. So I'm definitely familiar with him. I guess apparently they've made a new theories that the Flag Smashers plot motivation was massively affected by the pandemic due to the pandemic/vaccine subplot. An interesting watch. I'll have to check that out.
I don't think that's a theory. I think that's, I mean, not like Kevin Feige has said we rework things because of this, but I'm pretty sure there is something to that. That there were part of the reason why this show was delayed past WandaVision was because they reshot some of it because they wanted to take out some of the pandemic stuff. And I'm forgetting right now there's a story about from Captain America. Is it the Mind Bomb, maybe something like that, where there was some sort of pandemic type thing that happened. And you know, earlier in episode 2, the Flag Smashers were stealing some vaccines. Well, you can chalk it up to, we've also seen them steal other supplies. So that all kind of checks out. I do think there were some changes though, because of the pandemic. At this point, for whatever reason, either they didn't want to they wanted to be sensitive to that nature of that story, or they didn't want to work that kind of thing in because in 2023, when this takes place, their coronavirus isn't part of the story they're telling. And so they're just not doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Getting back to kind of Walker, it's just like, in my mind, Walker, and I say this without using another word in front of it, Walker seems to be a very much a close either definition or analogous to what a supremacist is. He thinks wearing the uniform entitles him to power, like you said. And so that is a supremacist nature. It kind of relates back to what Zemo is saying about Carly and other super soldiers. It is a supremacist attitude, which again is interesting because Zemo in the comics is a Nazi. I like some people say he's a former Nazi. No, he's still a Nazi. It's just he's not wearing the swastika anymore.
Yeah, they've definitely changed quite dramatically. Like Zemo and Wanda have this connection from both being from Sokovia and Sokovia being, destroyed at this point. Those characters don't have a connection like that at all in the comics. Correct. Zemo is very different from the comics counterpart.
But it works. It's a modern age, reinterpretation of it while the essence is still there. Travis Snell's in the chat. Walker, you mean Tony Stark Jr.? Don't worry, Travis. We'll get to your hot take a little bit later. So they get to the funeral, and Sam Spade said, "Let me get a shot at Carly. Let me see if I can talk her down before you just barge in there and ruin everything." Sam almost has her. I don't think he totally has her, but I think he finds a crack. He finds a window into Carly, and when Carly says at one point, "Oh, you twisted my words," it's like, no, I got you to hear what you're trying to say out loud. This is how the world sees you. What you just said of you do it again, you'd kill those people again. It's like, do you hear yourself? Saying that out loud, that gave her pause. Like, wait a minute, you twist murder. No, you said what you said, but you're not so far gone that you're not able to be saved.
I think he would have had her. John, he's like, you have 10 minutes, and then he tries to go in early. And we basically saw that's what happened. He went in early. Yeah. Just a few more minutes, and Sam may have talked her down. It was real close. I do think, given significant more time, 10, 20, 30 more minutes, if John had just showed just a small amount of restraint, they would have talked her down. The whole thing basically ends peacefully, and Carly doesn't end up killing Battlestar.
Yeah. Snell says, I think Walker's actions have been good for the show because it's like Killmonger, like Frank Castle. There's a discussion this character brings up. I hope he's not one and done this season. I don't see Walker being one and done.
I would be disappointed.
Yeah.
I want him to become the U.S. agent. He has been good for the show. We don't like the character, but we're not supposed to like the character. Wyatt Russell is doing a fantastic job in this part. He needs to be back. Would I put him quite like Killmonger? I don't know. I don't know quite there if I would go with it, but you're probably just saying that because of your Iron Man Jr. nonsense. So we'll get to that here in a minute. But he's a good character. He needs to be back. I don't want him dead at the end of this.
Yeah, I think there's more to explore, and it represents a segment of American society that you can't necessarily be there, and we can delve more into that in a minute. but it ruins it. They leave. She escapes or tries to escape, and Carly goes down to get shot by Walker and drops all the super soldier serum. No, excuse me. Zemo shoots her. Excuse me. Zemo goes after her, shoots her, and then sees all the super soldier serum, and he starts smashing it, but misses one. And as soon as I saw him miss one, I know some people said, Zemo should have picked it up. I said, no, that he doesn't want anything to do with it.
I don't think it's a big deal that Zemo missed it, because you got to remember he's in the middle of stomping it all when Walker took him out, when Walker knocked him unconscious.
Yep.
So for all we know, Zemo saw it over there and he was just stomping these four, and then he was going to go to that one vial. He didn't have an opportunity to go there. But as soon as you saw it, you're like, okay, well, I know where this is going. The only question is, when is he going to take it?
Yeah. And but yeah, Walker grabs it and he just pushed it away. And so that's when you get to that conversation that, at the cafe. And I think I love these moments in the show. And I think WandaVision also had these moments. And I think that's one of the things that has made the MCU good, is these quiet moments, these discussions. And you and I had done a Marvel Alliance episode looking at these quiet moments, these non-action moments, and the conversation at the cafe table, I think, is one of those very good moments that explores. We get that little hint of, it's not as humorous as I remember Budapest quite differently. Something went down in Afghanistan that, Walker says, that was I got 3 medals for the worst day of my life. If we had that super soldier, how many lives could we have saved? And it's just like, man, it's, you get your own story in there. So it's one of those things like, man, I want to know more. I guarantee you the story you have in your head is probably all we're going to get. And I think I'm okay with that, because we might get a little bit more if we delve into US Agent, if he continues on, which again, we hope he does. But for right now, we get that peek into who John Walker is.
I think this was an important moment, because it's reminding us that ultimately, he does want to do the right thing. He is not a good person. I think we can all agree with that. But at some point in his past, he was trying to do the right thing before he went too far off the rails. And right now he's there. And, Clay had mentioned he doesn't want to, he doesn't want him brought back because he doesn't want the chance to end up liking him. And to that, I would just say, you like him the way you like any other villainous or jerk character. I mean, you don't have to think he's a good person, but kind of like you like Thanos, but he's not a good person. He's just a good character. And I do think John Walker is a really good character. And I'll admit, I have not read a ton of him in the comic books, but so far this is consistent with what I have read. Mm-hmm. And it does make me want to read more of him. I just haven't done it yet.
Yeah. Tim Rooney's in the chat saying, I enjoy the consistency of Zemo destroying the vials. Again, I think anyone who thinks that Zemo is behind developing the super soldier serum is kind of missing the point. I think it's one of those things, he'll do a double back. I said, he's been pretty firm on he's against anything with super soldiers, even if they're quote unquote doing good.
I don't understand the Zemo theory. I've seen it all over various social medias of, I subscribe to Sharon Carter is the power broker, at a minimum working with / for the power broker. There's this theory that Zemo is the power broker, or that Zemo's the one behind it. And that to me, like Rooney said, that's not consistent. Super soldier is his main focus, but he's pretty much anti-superhero altogether. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I don't see where he would be this character that the one thing this character is known for is giving other people superpowers. And especially for financial gain, when Zemo flat out says, yeah, I'm rich, I'm a baron. What do you expect? So it does to me. I don't, if he's connected to the power broker or allied with him in any way, I don't understand it. They're going to have to really explain that one, because right now I can't see it.
Yeah, it's definitely tough. But we do mention Sharon. We get Sharon back. apparently has access to satellites. She has a satellite or two, but it's interesting. Madripoor, we've only gotten a view of once, but like she's walking down this, I wouldn't even call it back alley, just a back part of Madripoor, and like everyone's just holding, machine guns, assault rifles, things like that. And she does mention like Power Broker's pretty ticked. Madripoor's it's going to get pretty rough pretty soon. It's like, what is going to happen? What is going on that is going to get rough? The doctor's dead. Power Broker wants those vials back. We know everyone but one of them is gone at that point. What is his or her motivation? Like, what does it mean Madripoor is about to get bad? Like, what do you mean by this? That's when I kind of scratch my head. Like, what does striking back on Madripoor do? What does that prove?
Right now, like, just thinking of that scene as she's just walking along, all these guys and surrounding her with guns and stuff. It doesn't feel like it's just a bunch of, criminals at Madripoor that are just hanging out. They feel like guards. Yeah, and she is walking through them. And I'm like, why does this art dealer have those kind of guards? Oh, because she lives in Madripoor. She works out of Madripoor. She has those connections. I'm like, all this scene did to me was push me further along the Power Broker slant. It's like I don't see it. If she's not, they have some explaining to do here about why does she have these kind of connections if she isn't going down that path.
Yeah, like I said, I've been towing in and out of that she's a Power Broker or not. I'm more on the camp that she's working for it or she's a double agent. Because people say, like, where does she get access to satellite? Well, if she's worked for the Power Broker, then she's got tech, and she's got tech people work for her, or she's a Power Broker itself, got people to access it, or if she's a double agent, she can basically have that access at that point and just claim that, oh yeah, we've hacked our way into some of these satellites. So I like it that we're getting these continued glimpses of Sharon Carter. And again, I think we're going to see her for the rest of the next couple of episodes. But but then Carly makes a interesting move of basically threatening the life of Sam's sister.
Yeah, that's. I mean, she already, took it a step far with the bombing last week, and now by threatening Sam's sister, it's like, you're going too far down this path, Carly. You're not going to be able to come back from this, and I don't think she makes it out of the show alive. I don't.
Correct.
I don't truly believe that she had any intentions of actually going after Sam's sister, of going after Sarah. She clearly was able to get eyes on them somehow, or she has looked him up before because, like, she knew they had a doc. She knows about that. She knows where he's from. She knew how to track Sarah down and talk to her. But the Flag Smashers, to me, don't seem like they're so well organized that they would have all their leadership here with these events and also have people back home. I feel like we would have seen somebody watching Sarah. They would have showed us somebody in a Smasher's mask with eyes on her at the time. So I don't think she was truly going to hurt Sarah, but it's still a bad look. It's a really bad look.
Yeah, it doesn't help her case along in any way. All in the Game has a question. Hypothetically, could Zemo lead an MCU Thunderbolts team of superpowered people if it goes against his core philosophy of being against superpowered people? It's one of those things like, what does this have for Zemo? And like, what does Zemo gain out of being part of this team? Like, what do they have to give him that he can have an uneasy alliance,
I could see them maybe potentially going a Suicide Squad type route where he's not really given a choice. He's threatened. I could also just see that being more of a thing of, yes, Zemo has his principles, but he could potentially be convinced or made to believe that there is a greater good, that working with that group could help. Maybe, look at Captain America in Civil War with the Soviet Sokovia Accords, when he's like, if we and the conversations with Black Widow and everything, he's like, if we can't go where we want to go, they won't let us. And Widow says something along the lines of, if we have one hand on the steering wheel, at least we can help direct it. Maybe that'll be the philosophy he takes. If he's part of it, he can maybe at least help direct it in a way that he thinks would be beneficial. And I don't know for sure, and we don't even know. I mean, we're still technically just speculating about Thunderbolts. We still don't have any hard rumors. There's just a lot of evidence towards it. But through the lens, Tim Rooney says, who would be a second in command Abomination? We still don't even know that Zemo would be the leader of this. I mean, if Thunderbolt Ross is involved, he's probably the leader. And
or Bucky.
Or Bucky. And that's the thing. Like, what brings Bucky and Zemo to work together again after this? You know, well, this proved they could do it once together. And when all is said and done, maybe it's going to prove that they're effective. And maybe Bucky will help turn around the idea of a super soldier in Zemo's eyes. But I don't, it's full on speculation at this point. I'm definitely just, quite literally making stuff up, trying to think of possibilities for this speculation, a show that we think is coming.
Exactly. Snell says, I could see Thunderbolts having to take down Zemo in the first season. Sure, they could be going after him at that point instead of him leading the team like in the comics. Fanboy Clay. But does Carly become a martyr to keep the Flag Smashers in the MCU going forward? It's one of those things that, I think that there'll always be kind of elements of, support. They just kind of lose their leader, but, it's kind of like that old, the Hydra thing, cut off one head, two heads emerge, just, not as sinister, I guess. But they could, if they lose Carly at that point, they become much more radicalized because, again, when she sets the bomb off and kills people, it shocks Nico. It's like, what are you doing? That's not what they had thought it was going to be, So if she gets martyred and they're like, well, she had the right idea, let's go start becoming more and start, really killing people.
It might depend on how she's killed, how she dies. If Walker kills her and then is immediately taken out, and maybe she doesn't go full on martyred at that point. If the other Flag Smashers, look at that scene earlier in this episode when they're watching and listening to the news about the bombing and like about the one guy who only started working there like a week before and they killed him. You can see on the rest of their faces that they are not okay with it. And so maybe it's a scenario of between that and between her killing Battlestar and then Nico being killed later that the opposite is true, and she's not martyred so much as they start to turn away from her.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, but we come to the key moments in the show. The big fight trying to get Carly. Sam and Bucky try to bring her in and reason with her. That doesn't work, so he takes off. Walker and Lamar come onto the scene, and Lamar gets captured. At some point, I'm pretty sure it's before they get to that thing, Walker's taking the serum. I think that the telltale sign is when he throws the shield and it jams into the wall. Because I don't think he's been able to do something like that.
No, that's definitely like the first sign of it. And he didn't have it. He had it with him, but he didn't have it at the cafe scene. Like he hadn't taken it yet.
Correct. Yeah.
And so that scene was Lamar Hoskins giving him permission to do it.
Yeah, because Lamar didn't even think, oh yeah, I'd take it. Totally. We're going to save lives with it. He says, remember, you're the best one. You know you don't crack under pressure. You're the best of us. Oh, we forgot the other good line of speaking about that, the Dora Milaje, they weren't even super soldiers and they beat me,
So satisfactory. They weren't even super soldiers. They weren't. Quit your whining.
All the game says he starts twitching.
Yes.
And it's we see him like bend the pipe, hit him against the wall. Even Sam realized that moment. Oh crud! What are you now able to do? What did you do?
Yeah, at this point, Sam, you got to give him credit. He, at this point, is like the only non-super soldier who's still alive. Let's put it that way, after what happens to Lamar. But in this battle, he holds his own. And sure, you got to presume he used to train with Steve Rogers. We don't really know that definitively. We never saw it on camera. We didn't get like a training montage with the two of them. But he is able to hang with Steve Rogers, at least in all those battles. And he holds his own as the only person who's not a super soldier that's left in this battle.
And we saw it in episode 1. I think we saw it even more in this one, like how good he is with those wings and using that jetpack and just using every different way to fight back at that point. But it's Lamar gets hit by Carly and basically breaks his neck or his back. Well, I think it's his neck at that point. The way he hits the stone column.
I've heard it speculated that some people think he might still be alive and that Walker just was too caught up in the moment of everything to like be able to detect like a pulse or whatever. I don't buy it. I think part of me is like, okay, I won't be that surprised because comic books, but if I think the intent is that he's dead.
Yeah.
And so the one, like almost the conscious of John Walker has now been killed. And so I think that's the intent.
Yeah. And I had said as we were entering the show and as beginning when we got introduced to John Walker, there in the comics, his family is killed. And that's what sends him over the edge. I said there is going to be a moment where I know at one point it says, well, if something's going to happen, his family, something. And Lamar's family, in my eyes, gets taken from him, killed, and sends him over the edge. And that's what happens. He jumps out, loses it, and goes after, knocks down Nico, takes the shield while onlookers are recording into shock. And the man who said he looked up to Captain America, Steve Rogers, at that point, gets killed by John Walker, Captain America, with the blood on the shield. And I don't think we've ever seen in the MCU the blood on the shield. It's definitely one of those homages to at least the blood on the shield from the variant cover to Civil War by Michael Turner. Just seeing the shock. I mean, literally, it almost looks like time stops at that moment. Just seeing the rage. And man, that is probably the most brutal scene and darkest scene we have seen in the MCU.
This episode, the whole world watching, I think there's 2 bits in the episode that fit that. The first one is the news broadcast the Flag Smashers are watching, where the news of the bombing went worldwide. We know that, especially because of Sarah knowing about it. The second is this moment, surrounded by all these people with their cell phones. All this footage of him. And here's where I have to ask, do you think he's going to be condemned by the public, by the U.S. government, or applauded?
See, this is one of the things that the government, I'm just going with what it could be, is Nico's technically viewed as a terrorist. So yes, was he, if we're going to go with rules of engagement at that point, was he presenting a clear and present danger to others around him? Was he, taking hostages? Was he doing that? No. However, they will try to spin it that he was a terrorist linked to killing GRC soldiers at that point. Why are we crying over our Captain America taking down? That's what we want. We want these terrorists off the board. And that's what he represents.
They could spin it as this group just killed Battlestar. Yep. They're not going to say the problem with that is we know it's different. Correct. We know that Carly acted alone. Fanboy Clay, the American media will eat it up. You're absolutely right, Clay. We know that Carly acted alone with the bombing. It was all her. And we know that she's the one who killed Battlestar unintentionally. I believe that, but she is the one who did it. Nico is just caught in the crossfire at this point. And I guess this is probably when we should talk about Snell's Iron Man comparison.
Well, before we do that, I want to kind of look at some of that unpacking, even just how big this breakdown of what just happened. Tim says, I'm still considering this a beheading, like a called it while on this show a while back. Yeah, you did, definitely. All in the Game would have been captured in sweet 4K by some onlookers. Oh yeah, some people are going to be selling that to the American media. The shield, Captain America's shield, especially that it's a round shield, that's a defensive weapon. It is not, you can use it, but the purpose of a shield is to be defensive. Walker using it as an offensive weapon is a complete perversion of not only what the weapon is, but he's also distorting what the title of Captain America is supposed to be, and supposed to what Steve created with that image, that symbolism. You easily parallel this to Steve fighting Tony at the end of Civil War. Steve's holding back. He does use the shield to pierce the arc reactor and look like he steps away from killing Tony. He stops, stops, walks off, and is carrying the shield, and eventually drops it, even though Tony says, "You don't deserve it," But Steve realizes also he used the shield out of anger. He was angry. He was that does not like him, and he gives it up, not taking it with him, because he realizes Tony has a point. I don't deserve it because I betrayed what I represented as being Captain America.
We have seen Captain America, the real one, Steve, use the shield offensively before. I mean, he does it all the time. He flings it, bounces it around, doesn't obey the laws of physics at all, and it takes people out. We've seen that before. But a key difference here is when Steve had Tony defeated, Tony never actually surrendered. Nico was full on surrendering. He's like, I give up. And so that's the other thing is not only did they kill this, but he killed someone who had surrendered. He was no longer going to be considered a threat at all. Steve, he didn't get that, admission of defeat from Tony. Tony never gave up. Tony thought his own head was about to get taken off when he covers his head with his hands.
Yeah.
But he never said, I give up or I quit. Steve stopped himself even before that point because he knew at this point Tony was defeated.
Yeah.
John Walker did not have that capability. And I've seen some people try and defend it by like, well, he just got the super soldier serum and we don't know like how he just got it injected relatively recently, how it's affecting him. And I'm like, well, the purest form of this stuff went into Steve Rogers and it didn't send him mad and crazy because it makes you more of who you are. And so while John Walker may technically be officially on paper on the side of the good guys, if you will, if you want to put that in quotes, he's still a bad person. He's an interesting one, but he's a bad person. And he was unable to see that happened. And yeah, I get it. His best friend, like his brother practically had just been killed in front of him, but he knows it wasn't that guy who did it. Like if this had been Carly on the streets, not that I would excuse it, but I would understand it more, but it wasn't Carly. And he knows that.
Exactly. And also take note, the flag on his patch on his shoulder is not red, white, and blue. It is black and white. It's very symbolic because the black and white flag is meaning no quarter is given or no prisoners will be taken. So,
well,
he
lived up to that.
He definitely did. So yeah, let's delve into Travis's kind of take. He kind of put, I know he put out there on Twitter, but he put it in our chat so we would see it as well. Why don't you kind of lead that off and let's deconstruct it.
So Travis said it might be a hot take, but he sees lots of similarities between John Walker and Tony Stark, especially in Iron Man 1. Both started as humans working with the government, both very egotistical, both making bad choices under pressure. Tony and Ultron, John in this latest episode, killing unarmed terrorists, and now Walker is in the public more. He says he gets that Walker is in public more. I think the big difference here is, and maybe I need to go back and look at Iron Man 1 again, but it's not like they may have been unarmed terrorists, but they were very much active in terrorist tendencies. And this is something that we know that Walker doesn't. Nico wasn't. He wasn't for the bombing. He wasn't behind killing. Yes, he still believed in the overall mission. He clearly believed in the ends. He may not have believed in the means they were trying to get there. So I nonsense crack aside, I do get where Snell is coming from. I don't buy into it. I'm not convinced yet of it.
Yeah, I think we're dealing with two kind of different people, obviously, but I'm just saying different circumstances at that point where Tony is trying to right a wrong in the sense of like, if you look at that sequence when he kind of jumps on the scene as Iron Man against those terrorists, they're using his weapons, Stark Industries weapons. He is trying to stop them from using it against the people. And so he's seen them. He has seen them being, like you said, doing terrorist actions, some killing, some taking them hostage, some doing awful things. again, Nico was surrendering. Nico was not there. So, but also the personalities are different. Again, Tony's trying to right a wrong. He's trying to be a better person at that point. John is seeing red. His friends just died. It's again, like you, I see the essence of it, but I don't see it exactly the same. And I know Travis isn't on the chat to kind of further do it, but I thought it was a good enough. We both thought it was good to kind of wrestle with that idea. But I think the essence of what he's saying has merit, but I don't think they're exactly the same.
Yeah, I understand why he would make the comparison. I'll go that far with it.
Manuel Clay says Iron Man killed the men that were threatening lives. Nico did not kill anyone. I understand guilty by association, but I don't want to get my head chopped off if my best friend gets away with murder. Good point.
That feels like a good life goal,
Yep, I'd say so. But this penultimate episode supposedly is going to be the longest yet. I think it's supposedly, these lovely time. I think it's going to be over an hour, or at least come close to it. But that's probably including credits, so it's probably still going to fall under an hour at that point. But we have apparently come to the point where this episode 5 is supposed to be very emotional, but also we're going to see a award-winning actor or actress portray a Marvel character that's from the comics, but has not been entered into the MCU proper. We can theorize up and down. I'm just saying that's going to be very interesting to see if and when. They've been very specific. They have brought that up before the show began, during the first couple of episodes about episode 5, how important it is. They have kept on saying it. They've been very consistent saying that.
Here's the thing. I think it's a blast to do all this speculation. I'm not looking forward to like everyone, obsessing over the aerospace engineer, only to find out that it's not actually Reed Richards who's showing up, and then to suddenly have this narrative of like, oh, well, that show was dumb because the Fantastic Four weren't in it. Like, I wish they had not said this. And I don't remember the exact quote, but the director did say something like, what's the one episode you're most excited for people to watch? And it was episode 5 was his answer. So I mean, episode 5 is one that quote's been in the back of my mind for the last few weeks. I don't know. I want people to keep it in check a little bit. Just keep it in check.
Yeah, all the games says, which Marvel would show a little restraint and stop teasing this stuff out. People will still watch. You're right. Exactly. He didn't need to say it. At that point, you're exactly right. There's something to be said, like anticipation. Just you're gonna watch the show, let that sudden discovery, like, oh, Red Skull in Endgame. No one said any hints about Red Skull coming back into play at all in whatever form. They kept that close to the vest. No one said anything until you experienced that moment. I was like, oh my God, did not see that one coming. So yeah, you're exactly right.
Yeah, I do think some of this is like All in the Game wishing that Marvel would show restraint. They are they're being interviewed. Like, they're being asked these questions. And so I do think some of that is like, they just need a little bit better PR handling of like, you're going to be asked these kinds of things. There's no reason to tease this. Like, you can say, I'm really excited for episode 5 without also throwing in, and we have a cameo from some big deal actor or actress playing some character that you don't know about. Like, they can do part of it without, they're going a little too far with the tease. They just need a little bit better PR handling is all.
Starbone says, I still think it's She-Hulk, especially with the scene of Walker being in the courtroom from the new trailer. So could be, they do like teasing out other shows.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly possible. I will tell you, I haven't seen that trailer, and nor am I going to at this point. I did end up watching the mid-season trailer for WandaVision, but I'm only a couple days away from the next episode. I'm just gonna let it go, and I'm gonna let that trailer go, and I will just never see it, and that's fine.
Yeah, same here. I even though most of it from what I have heard is old stuff being recycled, I just want to kind of experience it where I can. Clay says, is Disney always going to be chasing their own moment with the Mark Hamill cameo? I think it's become kind of one of those things since it. I think kind of, the misinterpretation and misquoting of Elizabeth Olsen at that point kind of got the better of him. I think the director is trying to say, I'm going to really, in my mind, I believe what I'm saying. Like, this is a big deal to me. And I think you all are going to still be surprised by it. But I want to like course correct and yeah, we're a little gun shy from what we thought was going to be happening with Elizabeth Olsen's being misquoted. I'm going to tend to, and I'll break my heart. That's fine. But I'm going to tend to believe it this time. And then at that point, shame on me if it doesn't work out. I don't have a theory. I'm a little more believing this one.
I found the quote from Spellman, the director. So when he was asked about episode 5, which episode are you the most excited for? And he said, hands down 5. It just gets real. You're going to cry, he said. And then he goes on, it says he goes on to reveal, quote, an episode 5 character with a strong personality who he would love to see partnered with someone like Thor. Later, the Slash Film Daily podcast, I was listening to their discussion about this episode, and one of the hosts, forgive me, I don't know which one it was. I don't listen to that show enough to know their names off the top of my head, mentioned that he knew who it was. He flat out knew, and that's where this whole award-winning stuff came from. So that never actually came from directly from Spellman. Again, he doesn't have to say this kind of stuff. We don't need, sure, answer the question. Episode 5 is the one I'm most excited for. At this point, do you just had IO that nobody knew about. You don't need to say these other kinds of things. And granted, this quote came out before the IO reveal happened, but you just don't need to say these kind of things to drum up interest, to drum up excitement in the series. It's Marvel. The interest is already there.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, just a little bit of PR coaching. They just need a little bit, not even a lot.
I would like to see basically, I'm fine with saying this is my favorite episode coming. Cool. That's the anticipation for it. Good. That's all we need. Just let it lie. I hope they learn their lessons with Loki. Because again, we don't need this. If it ends up being really cool, awesome. But yeah, this sometimes penultimate episodes end up rivaling the finale. And I think this one might have that going on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. They do. Maybe even more than sometimes, because they don't have the pressure of being the final part.
Yeah. So, but all right. So I think we've done our big deep dive into it. So we'll wait till next week. I'm looking forward to it. I'm also scared about what's going to happen to some of our people, who's going to make it out at that point. So, but we're going to take our first ad break. So listeners, these ads keep the lights on of the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network. We don't get to choose what ads come on, and so they can be a bit loud. So I'm going to give you a 3 count to turn that volume down before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. All right. So we got a little bit of news, a little bit of some interesting kind of more leaning on rumor. One, we're leaning on rumor. The other ones are, again, who they're coming from, probably more fact than anything else. So we'll start off with the big rumor. This is coming from Disney Plus Informer. Ryan Reynolds led R-rated Deadpool series reportedly in development. So wait a minute, aren't we getting a movie? Yes, but this is according to Bubble Blabber via Murphy's Multiverse, saying that a new R-rated Deadpool animated series reportedly in development for Hulu and presumably star internationally. Adult animation's become a big hit recently and Disney is trying to continue supposedly to invest in their category, even launching a new 20th television animation studio, focusing on a lot of different ones. But animation, again, but the idea that also Ryan Reynolds is going to be involved in this, possibly doing a voice, continuing the voice at that point. We have MODOK coming out. People saying, oh, they're doing MODOK, so this is just part of it. Let's remember where MODOK was coming from. MODOK was what was left over and was too far along in development to basically cancel. However, I will say that the trailers we've seen of MODOK, I'm definitely intrigued. It's definitely going to be out there. It may not be MCU proper, but you got me for at least an episode.
MODOK is not typically an animation style that I appreciate, but I did get some laughs out of the trailer and the clips that we've seen. So I have Hulu. I will definitely be trying it out. A Deadpool R-rated animated show for Hulu. Yes, absolutely. If Ryan Reynolds is involved, even better. I love the 2 Deadpool movies. Absolutely love them. They are my favorite of the Fox X-Men movies. Yes, even over whatever other movie you're thinking of right now, the two Deadpool are
Apocalypse?
my favorite one. Yeah, oh God, they are
Dark Phoenix?
absolutely my favorite ones. See, now you're just a troll. But yes, over X2, over Days of Future Past, and over Logan, I love the Deadpool movies. I adore those things. So yes, if there's any possibility this is true, I hope it is. Would I ultimately like some stronger, more confirmed sourcing? Of course I would. But I am definitely here for it if this show happens.
Yeah, all in the games. It sounds like they're taking the place of the FX Deadpool animated show by Donald Glover that was canceled. Yeah, that's pretty disappointing. Yeah. You know, I would love to see more of that. I think that from what he has either leaked or hinted at that point, this was going to be something really special that he was going to bring on. That would be awesome if we can get him back involved in it. You know, having some sort of, you know, it's a pipe. If this is even real, you know, again, I think obviously the movie is the priority right now versus the animated show. So obviously they may be developed in conjunction. I would love if they're going to do a Deadpool animated movie, animated show, you don't have to connect it to MCU proper necessarily. You know, it doesn't have to be, but if Deadpool movie, again, as Travis has said, you know, I'll believe it when it finally happens. If it really is MCU proper, you know, again, when cameras are rolling and this is actually a real thing, great. But yeah, if Disney is going to lean into using these Fox properties and Deadpool is the first chance of rated R or PG, really hard PG-13 at that point, good. I want to see this because if it proves to be a success, that gives Disney and the MCU more wiggle room to still push that envelope for a different type of audience.
Yeah, and this is the kind of thing that to me, it's like at this point, if they're doing live action, I want it to be MCU. Animation project on the side, it doesn't need to be MCU for me. It doesn't need to connect to What If. It can, sure, I won't be upset if it does, but I don't need it to be. More Deadpool though, yes, please. That's all I needed. That's all I needed here. You had me at Deadpool.
Over Logan, wow, from All in the Game.
I have some issues with Logan. I don't like the villain. I don't like what they do with Professor X. I don't like that they decide we're going to stop at this house even though we're on the run. And, oh, look, we got all these people killed and lived in this house. Sorry, random family that we just wanted a home-cooked meal with. I have issues with that movie. I get why people love it. I do. And I'm not even going to say it's a bad movie. It's not. It's a good one for Hugh Jackman to go out on. I have issues with it. And let's put it this way. If I'm putting on a Fox movie, it's going to be Deadpool 95 times before it's Logan, because part of it's just how much I love those movies.
Yeah. I still remember when I first saw that trailer. My kids were just born and I was at the gym and that trailer had just come out and just the song Way Down. That's one of my favorite trailers from the Fox ones. It was perfect at that point. I was like, oh my God, they really are going Old Man Logan. I couldn't believe it that actually happened.
Yeah, I think it's cool they did that. And X-23, Daphne King, I think that's her name. Absolutely fantastic. Like if Fox had kept, had continued and they had done something more with her, I would have been thrilled. She did a phenomenal job. So I don't want to imply like it's a bad movie.
Oh yeah, I don't think you are.
I have some issues with it. Those aren't issues for other people. Like I know Snell, like it's his favorite movie. Or favorite of the X-Men movies, and maybe favorite movie with a Marvel logo, period. Snell, help me out on that one. I totally get that. I do. It's just, for me, from Fox, it's Deadpool.
Yeah. Hey, that's fine. Hey, guess what? As your co-host on Bands Up Bar says, it's all subjective.
I've heard that once or twice. Yeah.
A little bit. Not without the ding. Sorry, you don't do that anymore.
No, we don't do that anymore. The ding is a joke of the past.
Yes. All right, next news story. She-Hulk, Renee Elise Goldsberry to join Disney Plus Marvel series exclusive from Deadline. So Deadline has broken out their casting. According to the article, actress Renee Elise Goldsberry is set to join the upcoming She-Hulk series. While little is known about the role, her character is reportedly named Amelia. She is my first introduction to her, and many people's introduction to her was that she played Angelica Schuyler in the outstanding, phenomenal, I don't care what anyone says, one of my favorite musicals of all time, Hamilton. She is an amazing actress, and what she carried on in that play was great. She has had other roles. She is playing one of the leads in, I believe, Girls 5 Eva for Peacock, NBC's Peacock. She has been on Altered Carbon for Netflix, NBC's Always Extraordinary Playlist. So she is gaining, more and more traction in, streaming shows and things like that. But again, what I've seen her, and I saw her in the episodes of Altered Carbon, she is phenomenal. And so, we've already cast supposedly the quote unquote friend for Jennifer Walters. So this could be a neutral character, could be maybe an antagonist. We don't know. All we have is a supposed name.
Yeah, and I tried looking up friends of She-Hulk from the comics. I haven't read enough of them to really know. Patsy Walker is a name that came up, which would be interesting, especially because we just saw her in just 3 seasons of Jessica Jones plus the Defenders. This would obviously be a different take on the character, but that's fine because those shows aren't canon, so whatever. I said it. I only know Goldsberry from Hamilton. That's the only thing I know her from. I have not told my wife about this yet, just in case it's not true. She is a massive Hamilton fan. She will be thrilled at it because she'll definitely be watching the show. I may not even tell her. I may just let her be surprised. But she's not watching us tonight. So, but regardless, or at least she's probably not watching. She did last week, part of it. So I don't know. Maybe she is.
I saw her like the episode tweet. I was like, oh, look at that.
Yeah, but regardless, she will be thrilled with this. I only know her from Hamilton. She did a great job in Hamilton, so she's got the acting chops. That's good enough for me.
Yep. So we'll have to see. And I think supposedly it hasn't been confirmed by anyone, but based on filing papers and things like that, supposedly She-Hulk has started filming, I believe, yesterday, according to filed paperwork. So,
which is exciting because we'll start getting more and more news out about it. So.
Yeah.
And, we're probably not too far from getting an actual release date.
Yep. Supposedly also we've seen some stuff with Oscar Isaac, more training sequences, getting ready for Moon Knight. That's supposedly getting ready to film. I'm pretty sure we should start seeing the wrapping of filming on Miss Marvel pretty soon as well. They seem to be, some a little more castings coming out from that because they're in the middle of filming. But I think they probably in the next month or two, hopefully we'll get some wrapping of that franchise. Wrapping of the filming for that.
I actually thought they already did.
Okay.
And in fact, Google is telling me I'm seeing reports that they did a couple weeks ago.
Okay. So it was recent.
So they must be I assume they're in post now, but at least with principal photography being wrapped, it's definitely a show I'm very interested in. That's
I forget. Is that
that's
supposed to be dropping this year, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hawkeye, and I think She-Hulk is too, right?
I don't know. If they're already starting to film, that's going to be cutting it close at that point.
Nope, not She-Hulk. She-Hulk's next year, it looks like.
Yeah, I was about to say, for it to just be starting to film now, that'd be really pushing it, especially if Disney's going to hold to their premiering of Boba Fett in November, December at that point.
Yeah, right. But so we'll just have to settle for Hawkeye and Miss Marvel and Loki still to come. And we're also currently scheduled for 4 movies. We'll probably at least get 3 of them.
You're on the right show. You're on the right show for this. We got a lot of good content getting ready to happen. But yeah, our last news story, it tangentially affecting the MCU. Sony's future Spider-Man and Venom movies included in studios' exclusive Netflix deals. So last week, Sony kind of surprised a lot of people in the sense of this move of what they were doing, but they have made a deal, a new multi-year deal with Netflix that will give the company an exclusive first pay window licensing deal in the US. It would allow the streaming platform rights of Sony Pictures titles after the theatrical and home releases. So sources tell The Hollywood Reporter the deal is roughly worth $1 billion to Sony over 4 years. The agreement replaces an output agreement with Lionsgate-owned Stars dating back to 2005, provides Netflix with an 18-month exclusive window for Sony films. The theatrical films will only begin to be affected in the new deal in 2022, which, if everything holds, will include Morbius, Uncharted, and the sequel to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. It will not include Spider-Man No Way Home and Venom Let There Be Carnage if their dates hold. If they slip into 2022, you will not see the possibility of No Way From Home and Venom Let There Be Carnage on the possibility of Disney Plus. It will revert back to the Netflix deal. So again, they'll have that 18-month exclusive once it drops. That's so you and I have talked about this separately, offline and online. Sony needed to do something. Sony needed to do something because I don't think their catalog holds it on their own to develop their own streaming platform. Netflix is an amazing platform to do this on because Netflix holds its own in original content, but I also think they needed to distinguish themselves from an HBO Max, Disney Plus, Peacock that have studios tied to them that they already have a back catalog they own. I think this is a good deal all around for both of them. How this affects the MCU, it's going to be interesting.
I'll co-sign that. I actually don't think it's going to affect the MCU because right now there's 3 MCU projects that aren't on Disney Plus. I don't think this will affect it. And this technically does not include Venom, Let There Be Carnage, and Spider-Man No Way Home. Nothing says they won't come to another agreement to include those 2 movies. And especially Spider-Man No Way Home. Netflix would want an MCU movie. They absolutely would want that MCU movie. I do think this is a great deal for them because I'm totally with you. I don't see Sony having the catalog to support their own standalone service. And even if they did, they're too behind. They're way too far behind everybody right now. But by pairing up with the biggest streaming service, they've now got 200 plus million subscribers who will be able to see this content. And for Netflix was built on the backs of licensed content. They've started losing all their licensed content to all the other studios because they've all got services. This lets them get a little bit more while they continue to build up and continue to do their own Netflix original catalog. Netflix, they put out new stuff. Like I think they're doing like a new movie every week or 2 new movies or something.
Seems like it.
So it's not like they're hurting for the amount of content. This will give some theatrically recognized names. Spider-Man, Uncharted, things like that. And I want all Marvel content on Disney Plus. But for this particular move, I can't fault Netflix. I can't fault Sony. It's a good choice.
Yeah. I mean, guess what? I just changed my app. Say, all right, I want to go to my Spider-Man films, and so be it. But it'll give them Netflix the ability to the rights and to select titles from Sony's library, which includes Columbia's century-old catalog, as well as other studios' TriStar, Sony Pictures Classics, and Screen Gems. Netflix and Sony apparently have a pre-existing output deal for Sony Pictures Animation, first inked in 2014. So again, there's a lot of positive for Netflix. And again, this is something that Netflix can put another feather in their cap to get, because again, the numbers they're saying, like, they got to keep increasing subscribers. And people are like, who doesn't have Netflix? You'd be surprised how many people I know that don't have Netflix.
It's the biggest service, but there's still room to grow. And they are still, the way they are pumping out, the way they're pumping out original content, that's pricey. And unlike HBO Max, unlike Disney Plus, unlike Peacock, they don't have other revenue sources ultimately to the bottom line. Disney Plus is not Disney's only revenue source. HBO Max is not Warner Brothers or Warner Media's only revenue source. Netflix is Netflix's only revenue. So they do need some more stuff. And for the type of movies they're going to get, they don't have to foot the bill for the budgets of these movies. And so they're going to get these theatrical quality budgeted movies, and they're not going to have to pay that price for it. I totally get it.
Yeah. So we'll definitely see what happens and see if those dates for Venom and Spider-Man, hold at that point, see if it'll be included. But you're right. Netflix is probably hoping those slip into 2022 just for selfish reasons. And who can blame them? But all right. So that's all the news. So we're going to take our last ad break before we head into some listener questions, fact or fictions, and comic book corner. So again, Folks, these ads help to keep the lights on in the Geek Ultimate Alliance network. We don't get to choose what ads come on, and they can be a bit loud. So I'm going to give you that 3 count. So you turn that volume down to save your eardrums. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. And we're back. So let me log into our lovely Twitter to see the results of what people thought of my Fact or Fictions. You got yours ready to go, Brent?
Yep, I got them.
All right, so let's see where our polling ended. All right. So, fact or fiction, number 1, Bucky will officially get a new code name at the end of the Falcon and Winter Soldier. I said it would be Nomad. 36% said fact, and 64% said fiction. And so, yeah, that one, again, shot in the dark. It's going off with what some rumors that have been talking about Disney having a kind of a studio looking at the idea of the Nomad character. Tony said, seems like they've gotten mentioned Wakanda stuff quite a bit, especially with Adora showing up at the last episode. Wouldn't be surprised if Bucky just gets called the White Wolf. Dookie says, with only 2 episodes left, I don't think so, although maybe he just drops the code name altogether and just goes by Bucky. Could see either.
Yeah, could see that.
Number 2, Into the Spider-Verse 2 will lead into a new animated series focused on exploring the Spider-Verse with a mix of established and new Spider characters. This one was close. 47% said fact, 53% said fiction. So pretty much, fiction edging it out just a bit, but I still believe it's going to happen.
I hope so.
Yeah,
I do.
And last but not least, this one kind of surprised me because I thought everyone was going to be against me on this one. Blade will be the first entry into the MCU, establishing a line of horror genre superhero films / shows with characters like Ghost Rider, Werewolf by Night, and Man-Thing. 65% said fact, 35% said fiction. Tony says, feel like Moon Knight might be that instead. Yeah, Moon Knight, as we kind of talked about last week, kind of toes that line between suspense, mystery, and horror. So it'll be interesting to see what we get out of the Oscar Isaac show.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, you convinced me on it, so I think you're right on it.
Ultimately, at that point. So let me see. Tony did have a fact or fiction coming at us. The Loki show will end with us having Kid Loki.
Fact. I'm going fact.
Okay. I will go fact as well, just because that show's going to be all out there bonkers. At that point, I could see them pulling something like that and kind of a way to keep Loki around. Could be Tom Hiddleston-like, but it presents new options to cast Loki in different ways and maybe continue some of the casting from Loki of either Kid Loki, female Loki, whatever.
And of course, there's Young Avengers connections there.
Yeah, a little bit. So, all right. So what do you got for your fact or fictions?
All right. Number 1, we will see the Marvel one-shots come to Disney Plus within the next 18 months. These are the ones that used to be on the Blu-ray DVD home releases back during Phase 1 and the first part of Phase 2.
So we'll see the return.
Because right now, they're not on Disney Plus at all.
Yeah. So new ones or just the old ones?
Right now, just the old ones.
The old ones? I say yes, and the reason I say yes now is because of what they just did with Star Wars. The Star Wars vintage I think they're calling it vintage.
Sure, good point. I hadn't thought of that at all.
So I could see them adding that in. Again, it doesn't fall under these, they were kind of owned by different things. Like, they own that. So I think they could do both things. They can have a separate category of just watch the one shots and then put them back into where they were for those particular movies. So I'm going to go fact.
All right. I think fact as well. If it was a shorter timeline, that's why I made it as long as I did, because I wanted to be able to say fact. Next one, we will see a Tony Stark inspired villain in a property other than Armor Wars or Ironheart.
Oh, I know Nathan's saying yes. Everyone affected by it.
And I enjoy how much that bothers people. So I'm like, yes, we'll do that.
I do too. It's just like, really, that bothers you at that point? It's just like it's their gimmick, and I think I say fact it'll just be one more outside of Armor Wars at that point. And I think by either the middle or end of the next phase, definitely by phase 6, we're done with Tony Stark's inspired a villain.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I think for sure we have at least one more of those in us. Not counting Armor Wars and Ironheart.
On the game, Ed Brubaker, and I have not watched this, and I just found out that Ed Brubaker was on it. Batman Beyond this week was quite something. Real mix of good stories and residual bitterness towards Marvel. Fascinating watch. I have heard he's given some pretty hot takes. I know he does not mince words about his time on with Marvel, so that's going to be interesting. So now you're really making me want to jump into that after the show. What's your last one?
John Walker as U.S. agent will get a Disney Plus show.
I'm going to go fiction. I say right now he's supporting cast right now. I see him more supporting. I don't see him carrying a show yet.
Agreed. I have to go fiction on this. I do think we see him on Disney Plus in the future, probably in this speculated Thunderbolt show or something like that. But I don't see him quite being the lead yet.
Yeah, so we'll have to see. So we'll put those out there Sunday afternoon. I'll put those out there, so watch for those. We do have a listener question from Fanboy Clay. How many phases until we see a new fanfare?
You know, I should have double checked when he told me this question if he meant the music or just the visual.
Well, he's in the chat, so we may just have to have him catch up on our delays watching it. So, Clay, if you can clarify.
While we're waiting on that, it's worth noting that we first got this particular one, or this music, this Michael Giacchino music, with Doctor Strange. That was the first one that had it. And he just said the visual, and we haven't had that music in all of them, but it's most. All right. So how many phases till we see a new fanfare?
I will say the beginning of phase 6. I'll say that's the latest we'll see it. The earliest we will see it is the middle of phase 5.
I will agree with both of those. Especially with them using it for the Disney Plus episodes. It's been in front of every Disney Plus episode but one, episode 2 of Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yep.
Well, I mean, even there they had the visual, they didn't have the music.
Yeah, they had the Star Spangled Man playing.
I don't see them changing it. I mean, it may be the slight modifications of it, but ultimately this, I've been wondering how long it's going to be until we see Disney Plus scenes in the fanfare in the movies.
Let's see. We don't have Iron Man, Steve, Black Widow, so we need new character showcase. Yeah, that's why I want to say I think we have to build up like through this phase. We're gonna keep seeing that old fanfare, and I think at some point during the next phase, by the middle at the earliest, at the end of it by the latest, we'll have a new one because we'll have new characters to fall back on.
It's worth noting they already change it visually. The 2 Spider-Man movies, Spider-Man is in that fanfare. He's not in it for any other movie.
Yeah.
And so they already mix up the characters a little bit.
And if you really want to be technical, they do change it for the shows in the sense of like, we've already seen a new visual for Loki, how it's kind of ends at that point. Same thing with WandaVision at that point. But I know what you're getting at, Clay. I'm being nitpicky and just being a jerk about it.
But I like your overall assessment. Basically, middle of phase 5 to the beginning of phase 6 is when we'll see it.
Yeah. So good question. So, all right. Last thing for tonight, Ultimate 6, issue 2. As I've said, it's been a very long time, so it's almost like I'm reading this for the first time again. When I discover certain moments, I remember, oh yeah, I remember that. That's coming at that point. So what are your overall takes on this one?
I mean, for me, the big highlight is Dr. Octopus and what he does to initiate the escape for all of them. I think is fantastic. Just the ultimate version of Dr. Octopus is a little different because he is basically a
Mhm.
low-level mutant, and that is part of why he's able to control his arms. And they I know that's I'm actually forgetting right now. I know they dive into that more. I'm just trying to remember, is that in this series or is that later in the Ultimate Spider-Man line? I want to say
Yeah,
it's
I
the
can't
Ultimate
remember.
Spider-Man line, but it has been a long time since I've read this. But for me, that's the number one biggest takeaway is the whole con that Doctor Octopus plays on them.
Yeah, and it's one of those things like I read too many of these things just like you. I watch too many things like this. So when I immediately see a bad guy, all of a sudden saying, oh, yeah, I'm going to cooperate. Sure, Jan. Sure. And it doesn't ruin it for me necessarily. And it just, like, oh, here's that old tire trope again. I was just like, okay, we're going there. I'm interested just because I've always found Doctor Octopus a very fascinating character, and I think in almost every iteration, he's definitely one of my favorite Spider-Man villains because of the whole backstory and how he is constantly, particularly where we get with, you know, you know, with what happens and to him against Peter for a long time. We'll just leave it at that, and I know Brent knows what I'm getting at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's my favorite Doctor Octopus story. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm with you. I'm right there with you.
That might be we have to pick something from that series maybe for when we get to choose a comic book corner. So
Yeah, we should put that on our list someday, at least part of it, you know.
yeah.
But back to this, it's all there's this one scene where he uses the arms to kill these like a couple scientists and a couple guards that were with him. Like he's convinced them, hey, yes, I'm gonna help you. I just want to
Mhm.
use my brain for good. You know, I've lost my way. I want to do something good for society. And they're immediately like, hey, we have a surprise. Here's your arms. I'm like, you're a moron. That's such a terrible decision. Even if he was sincere in his intent, what a jerk move to put that in front of him, to
Oh
put
yeah.
those right back in front of him. It's like somebody who's trying to become a recovering alcoholic, you know, trying to improve that aspect of their life, and you're like, here, have a beer. No, that's a horrible thing to do to somebody, and they just stick it right in front of it, and yeah, he got exactly what he wanted though.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely like the interplay back to the beginning of the one between Hank basically pushing Norman to react, and
Mm-hmm.
basically
Yep.
Green Gobbling it out.
To prove in the previous issue, Norman was like, "Why are these collars on us? Are you saying we actually still have the power to change?" And yeah, Norman, you do. You definitely changed yourself.
Yeah. And when he comes back 6 weeks later, can't mention without Sharon basically saying, you know, to Electra saying, "Well, let's see your top two." Oh, sure. No, not going to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sharon
I
being
mean,
sassy as ever.
yes, Sharon Carter. I like her. I think she's funny. She's just
Yeah.
messing with them.
But how about that whole sequence with Nick and Cap? When they're discussing what's going on, and he's saying, he's basically saying, the way they are because super soldier experiments you commissioned in an attempt to repeat the experiment that made me as Captain America. Basically calling him out, saying you were doing this, and he basically says, yeah, and then Steve just outright walks out.
You know, another notable thing about this scene is Nick Fury asking for input. Hey,
Yeah.
this is going to affect you guys. If he goes crazy and off the reservation, you're the ones going to get called in to clean up the mess. What do you think? Well, sure enough, that happened. But what do you think about like that? That doesn't feel like a Nick Fury thing to do. And I'm not saying it's like out of character. It's just not a thing we normally see from him. He's normally very decisive. It's my way or the highway. And here he's like, I would like your opinion, please.
Yeah. And yeah, you're right. Especially the way this Nick Fury, I think any iteration of Nick Fury, he's not one to ask for feedback. It's just, you're going to do it. I don't ask for input. So yeah, I mean, Doc Ock plays everyone, shuts down the prison cells, so everyone escapes, does their own gobbling out, electroing it out, and saying, Green Goblin basically telling Doc, I got to get my son. And we're like, Harry, no, my other son, because they dropped that little hint towards the beginning of the issue that he considered Peter more of a son than Harry.
Mm-hmm. Which has always been part of the tragic relationship of Norman and Harry and Peter. And we get some of that, like especially in the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie. If you've read recent Amazing Spider-Man comics, I'm not going to spoil it or go into details here, but that comes into play, the relationship that these three men have with each other. And it's just, it could have been so good. Peter and Harry were so close to each other. They were such good friends. Norman clearly appreciates them both, but no, he has to ruin and twist everything. And it's pretty much left implying that he's going to try and get Peter to join him and the other five.
Yeah. So I think we're done with a lot of prelude. I think the next issues are going to be kind of much more action based at that point. I think these two issues, at the end of it, I was like, oh, okay, so we're just still building in this issue. As I said, it's been a while since I've read it, so it kind of surprised me that we basically had two kind of build up issues.
Well, I mean, Bendis talking head issues. That's his thing,
Yeah, it is. So you're right. It is.
I was kind of had the same thought until I'm like, oh yeah, it's the writer. I mean, that's what he does. So
exactly.
I'm ready for the action. I'm ready for Spider-Man to come into play. So I think it's going to be next issue.
I'd say so. I've seen that cover. He is definitely prominent on that cover. So, all right, volume 44 in the books, and we might have something special planned at the end of this episode as our Easter egg. We apologize. Thank you, Travis, for having some fun with us. At that point, we do have something planned for this one. It'll be pretty quick, but we do have something planned. So, but for those of you can't continue to join us at that point, thank you all for joining us. Good episode. I think next week I think we're gonna have a lot to say next week.
Yeah, definitely. But we're not usually short for things to say anyway.
Not at least on Falcon and Winter Soldier. So
nope.
I think it's been our longest discussion yet. But why don't you tell people how they can follow you and all that fun jazz.
Sure. I'm Brentak Prime on Twitter. Follow me there and you'll find pretty much everything I'm doing.
Cool. And you can follow me on Twitter at Chris Balga. You can follow the show at Marvel A Podcast on Twitter. You can email the show at marvelalliancepodcast@gmail.com. You can follow the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network on GUA Network, GUA Pod Network. Feel free to tweet, email if you want to provide feedback, fact or fictions, questions you want us to delve into on the show. Talk about your theories of who do you think is this mystery person at that point. I'm sure at some point you're all right and you're all wrong. Continue
Schrodinger's cameo? Is that what that would be?
Yeah, probably. Continue to rate and review the network on Apple Podcasts, wherever podcatcher choice may be. Thank you, everyone who joined us in the chat tonight. Thank you all for listening. Stay safe out there, everyone. And as always, Stan the Man would say, Excelsior, true believers. All right, Brent. We forgot last week. We got so involved with Marvel at Marvel, and it wasn't until the next day when I texted you, messaged you, it's like, oh my God, listen to the end of the show. We literally, you had said we totally forgot to do this. Snell covered us. We're not going to disappoint. Let's continue our discussion. We got 2 episodes. So we're going to be very, very quick about this. Episodes 4 and 5, high level thoughts.
I love Invincible so much, and we've already got, like, I see the thumbnail for episode 4, and I'm like, oh, they're doing the Mars. He's going to Mars. I love that. I don't know what about it. It's like 2 issues of the comic is where that takes place. That story takes place, and they did the gag where he gets hungry. He's outside the spaceship in space, takes off his helmet, gets out his sandwich, and it just turns to ice. They did the gag. I'm like, yes, I love that they did that.
Oh yeah, how about the gag of we got to see the one where Immortal beat up the guy with the wingsuit at that point. See him still in space. He should have been more decrepit at that point, but I'll take it. I love that nod to the comic as well.
It's just such a fun show, and there's been all this talk about like Snell was asking, like, should I read the comics? Should I not read the comics? It's like, and they are following the comics pretty closely. They're doing things in different orders, but major events are still there. But even that one, I really enjoyed that, and it's not identical. There are changes but what changes they've made have been at worst lateral shifts and maybe even better.
Yeah, and again, I've said before to people like Kirkman's been saying, like I could continue to write this series forever. I've got tons of stories. I'm where he stopped. He did what he needed to do, but this is a way for him to kind of add those kind of things that he didn't get to do, and he gets to play with it in this way, and so that's really awesome. You know, the fifth episode was this whole battle sequence, you know, with him, you know, Marshall Ali, great, loved his portrayal of the character, and but just the brutality of that fight against him, against all these other new supervillains, against that the Guard of the Galaxy, they got their butts handed to them in brutal fashion.
Battle Beast, you know, played by Michael Dorn. And Battle Beast,
Worf.
Yes, if he becomes if the show lasts long enough, you know, I guess spoilers, this won't be the last time we see Battle Beast, but there is more to him. We'll just leave it at that. And he's not just this random henchman who comes in to beat up Invincible and the new Guardians of the Globe. But wow, what a brutal fight that was, right? It's like, oh my gosh, like you're doing this stuff to the main character and he's just beating him to a bloody pulp. And I'm like, that fits the show, man. That fits the comic. That's what they do. And Invincible, for all this talk of how invincible he is, he runs up against people of his power level on a fairly regular basis. So he does have to learn to actually fight, and he can't just rely on his powers.
And he kind of mentions that with his dad in training. I can't remember if it was the fourth or fifth episode, just saying, "What do you mean I can't just be strong? I actually got to work out. I've got to do this." And saying, "Yeah." In later seasons, he has to do that because, again, yeah, you're strong, you're quote unquote invincible. However, the baddies are going to keep going up in strength level, and this is the biggest one, Battle Beast, and way out of Invincible's league at that point. So I thought that was cool. I like how, again, there is going to come to a point where, you know, him and his girlfriend are, you know, that's building towards that. So that's comic accurate at that point, but the show keeps getting better. So I look forward to, back to your point, like reading the comic. Should I read the comic during or after it? I'm with you. You could do both. Either way, it doesn't detract you. But I would say if you're new to this show, finish the season, then start reading and seeing it at that point. You're not going to be disappointed either way. For me, for you, and other people like Clay also, and Joe, and all of our other friends that have read the comic already, I am more enjoying it because I'm anticipating, are they going to do this, and how are they going to do it differently? So that's where my enjoyment of the show is coming from.
Yeah, I completely agree with all of that. Finish this season and then dive into the glory that is the book. And we already know there was a story the other day about a new character who was never in the comic who's going to show up. And so it's not like somewhere I read an interview with Kirkman where he's like, it's like I'm getting an idea to take what I know now about storytelling, take what I know now about writing, and do this precious thing over again and better. And I'm not willing to say yet that it's better than what the comic is to me, but I like that Kirkman is getting to revisit this stuff. And yeah, he could have kept going. I would have been thrilled if he had kept going with the show, with the comic. Don't get me wrong. But he ended it on his terms. It had a super long, awesome run. And right now I'm just eating up this show while we have it. You know, I haven't had the time to watch these episodes as much, but I definitely want to, at least when it's all over, go back through the whole thing. And I'm so glad Amazon did this.
Yes.
It's like this. I've enjoyed several other shows from Amazon, but like this is the first time they put out something that felt like it was directly targeted at me. So yeah, thank you, Amazon.
Yep, thank you. So, but all right, so we got more to talk about. Marvel, Invincible, everything under the sun. But thank y'all for joining us. We appreciate it. Talk to y'all later.
See you later.